Hello everyone, I am back with another video today. Today I am making my gumbo for you guys. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you, and ain't gonna lie, I'm also really excited about having a bowl of it after it's done. It's just been a while since I've made gumbo, so it sounds really good. I've been looking forward to making this for a week now, a little bit over. Pretty much since I decided to make this and share this with you guys. So yeah, it's gonna be good. But anyway, we will be back in a couple weeks with baking yesteryear. Just kind of pausing for a little bit just because I did want to make and share this with you guys today. Next week we will be doing a St. Patrick's Day video with some Irish soda bread, and then we will be back with baking yesteryear with the Continental Johnny cake. But for now, let's focus on the gumbo. This is one of the first recipes that I started making. I've been making it about 20 years now. It's super good. It's always been one of my favorite recipes. One of those things that I did or would always come back to for a while. I would make it a couple times a year, and we would have like leftovers that we would freeze and everything, and then like once the leftovers were gone, I would make another big pot, and it was just kind of a cycle thing. And then just schedules and other things came up, and I wasn't able to make it as often as I used to back when I first started making it. So it has been quite a while since I've made it, so I am really looking forward to it today. I initially wanted to learn how to make gumbo back, I think, 2007 or 2008, like thereabouts. I was reading a VC Andrew series. Can't quite remember which series. I think the first book in the series might have been Ruby, but I'm not sure just because, like I said, it has been almost 20 years since I first started making this, and since I was reading that book series. But the series did take place down in Louisiana. Some of it took place in like swampy bayou area, and then some of it took place in New Orleans, I believe. At least from what I remember and everything. The main character did talk a lot about learning how to make roux and gumbo and a lot of other Cajun fare from her mom and everything, and it just made me really want to have gumbo and try making it at home and everything, and did kind of struggle to find a recipe that seemed simple and that didn't use shrimp or other seafood, just because I'm not a seafood person and everything. Just kind of wanted more of like a chicken sausage gumbo and everything. Eventually I came across this book here, which is the About.com Guide to Southern Cooking, and it did have a chicken and sausage gumbo recipe in there, and that is the recipe that I initially started making for my gumbo. Over the years, I've adapted and changed and stuff like that to the point where I'm not even sure how similar it is to the original recipe anymore. If I can find a link for this book, if it's still available out there somewhere, I will put it in the description box. I'm not sure if it's something that's still in print or anything like that. I don't even know if about.com is still a thing anymore. Just like I said, it is going on 20 years now, since I've purchased this book, and everything, but I will try to see if I can get that for you guys down in the description, and everything like that. This gumbo is pretty easy to make. It is kind of time consuming. You do want all your prep work done. You want all your veggies cut. You want your meat cut, and everything like that before you even start. Because once you get started in the cooking, you are not going to have time to stop and cut those items. So you want everything all ready to go before you even start. With that said, once you get started on your roux, you do have to watch it. The roux is the trickiest part about making a gumbo, because if it burns, you're gonna have to start all over because it will ruin the rest of your dish. You do have to watch it really closely, stand over it, stir it, do not move away from it at all while you're making it, and everything. But as long as you're careful and as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing with it, it will be fine. The rest of it is super simple. Most of the cooking time, which the cooking time I would say is about 2 hours start to finish, maybe a little bit longer depending on how long it takes for like your chicken and sausage to cook up and everything like that. But roughly I'd say about 2 hours. It does simmer for about an hour and a half on the stove, and that is very important. Do not rush that. That is going to allow all your flavors to come together and blend together and make the dish so much better. It's kind of all in the same order of like good barbecue sauce, spaghetti sauce, ribs, stuff like that, where just on low heat and slow cooking and everything, and it is going to make this so much better and so worth the wait. After you get it simmering on the stove, you can kind of walk away, you know, do your dishes, kind of do whatever if you need to work on some other stuff, and just come back and check on it and stir it every once in a while, and all that, and you'll be fine. You don't need to stand over it for 2 hours or anything like that. So like I said, once you get past the roux, it is actually really easy to make, and just something, as long as you're giving yourself enough time to cook this properly, it is going to turn out amazing. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so for our gumbo, we are going to be using some Creole seasoning here. This is the brand that I have always used for it. You can use whatever kind of Creole or Cajun seasoning you like. That is my preferred one, but you know, whatever you like, go for it. In here we have all of our vegetables chopped. There is celery in there. It's just kind of down at the bottom. We've got onion, and then I've got some red pepper, orange pepper, and some green pepper here. You can use whatever kind of bell peppers you like. I tend to prefer to use multicolored ones just because it does look really pretty in the gumbo, but whatever you have or whatever you can get a hold of is fine. It doesn't really affect the recipe any. It's just, for me, more of a visual thing than anything else. We've got some butter here that we're going to be using for the roux, and the flour, which is also for the roux. I've got some garlic here. I've got some chicken broth. This is some chicken, or some homemade chicken broth that we had that we're going to use. Okra, I'm using 2 bags of okra that I just got from frozen okra that I just got from the store. This is actually going to go in last, and this is actually an really important ingredient in this particular gumbo because it will help thicken it into more of the traditional gumbo texture and everything. There are some recipes that don't use okra at all, but I always have in mine and really do enjoy it. I've got some tomatoes, canned diced tomatoes here. These are basil, garlic, and oregano seasoned. I always use these or Italian style, which is basically the same thing. It just kind of depends on what brand you use, on how they have it labeled, whether it's basil, garlic, and oregano or Italian style, basically the same seasonings in it. And this will just help add some flavor to it without actually having to add those spices into it. If you have regular canned tomatoes, you can, but I would just recommend adding some basil and oregano into this as well, just so you still get those flavors in there. I've got sausage. This is a mixture of andouille and just regular smoked sausage. I do tend to use both when I'm making my gumbo. That is what we like. And everything, if you like it a little bit spicier, you could just use the straight andouille. If you want it a little bit milder, I would just use the regular smoked sausage. For us, the blend of the two is just perfect. And then we've got some chicken. And then once this is all done, we are going to serve it over some rice. I'm going to clear off my stovetop here, and we are going to get started with cooking up the chicken. Alright, to start, I am going to cook my chicken. So I do have this just in a skillet with a little bit of oil. I'm going to put on some of my Cajun seasoning. I don't really measure, I just kind of dump some on there. Kind of depends on how much chicken I am cooking. And we're just going to get this cooked until it is cooked through. Once that is done, I will be back. Alright, so my chicken is done. I did transfer it to a clean bowl here. We're just going to leave that set aside for a little bit. And over here, right in the same pan, I added the sausages. I'm going to be getting these cooked up in the drippings from the chicken. I did leave most of that in my pan when I was taking the chicken out. Once I have the sausage browned, I will be back. Alright, so I got the sausage all cooked. I did just add it right into the bowl with the chicken. We are just going to leave that set aside, and now we are going to get started on the rest of the gumbo. The first thing we're going to do with that is start our roux. Alright, so for our roux, I melted our butter. I am going to add the flour, and we are going to constantly stir this until it is all blended and cooked. It usually doesn't take long. I do have my heat on kind of like medium-low. And this is the tricky part. You do want to be really careful. You don't want to stop. You don't want to get interrupted, because if this burns, you have to do this all over again. That actually looks pretty good. So I am actually going to add in my chopped vegetables. Oops. And I'm going to get these cooking. Once I have these cooked up a little bit, I will be back. Alright, so I did mix in my garlic into my vegetables here. I did also turn my heat up a little bit. I do tend to make my roux on a little bit of a lower heat just to help prevent it from burning. I've got my vegetables mixed in. They're starting to cook. I mixed in the garlic. It is smelling fantastic. It's looking really pretty, and everything. So let us continue. Our next step here is going to be to add the chicken broth. Oh, I might need to add some water for this. If you don't have enough chicken broth for the amount of gumbo you can make, and you can always add some water with it. I'll have to see what it looks like in a little bit here. So we've got the chicken broth in there. We've got the tomatoes. I'm going to get these tomatoes added and I will be back. Alright, so I got my tomatoes in there. I added the chicken and the sausage into this, and then I did add in some more of the Cajun seasoning, and now I'm just giving this a stir. I think I am going to add a little bit of water to this, just because I think it could use a little bit more yet. Not much, but a little bit, and we are going to bring this to a boil. Alright, so I did thin this out just a little bit with some water. It was just a little hard to stir. I had more vegetables and meat than I had like soup or gravy or sauce or whatever you want to call the liquid in there. And it is definitely better now. So I am actually going to cover this and kind of bring it to a boil, and then I'm going to turn my heat down and we're just going to let it simmer for an hour. Once it is done simmering, I will be back and we will add in the okra to this. Alright, so that has been cooking for about an hour now. It looks really good. It smells really good. I'm going to add in my okra here. And we are going to continue this cooking for about another half hour. Once it is done, I will show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so this is pretty much done. I am going to dish some out over some rice, and I will show you what it looks like when it is ready to serve. Alright, so here is the final product. I do have this served over some rice, a nice big bowl full for myself for lunch. I am starving and this smells amazing, and I cannot wait to dig into this. After I am finished eating, I will be back with my final thoughts. Alright, so I am back with my final thoughts on the gumbo. I will try to keep it a little short today. I don't feel like I really have that much to say about my gumbo or anything. I love it. I've always loved my gumbo. I've loved making it. It always turns out fantastic. So it is definitely something worth making if it is a food you like. I know gumbo is not for everybody, but if you do like gumbo, definitely take the time to learn how to make it. I know there's a lot of different variations around out there and everything. Please let me know down in the comments below if you've made gumbo, and if you have, how your recipe is different than mine. I feel like it's kind of one of those things like everybody does a little bit differently and everything. Kind of like pasta sauce, everybody who makes pasta sauce has their own recipe and it varies from person to person. I feel like gumbo's like a lot like that too. So I am curious about other recipes out there, how they're similar to mine, how they're different to mine, and everything like that. If you're interested in making gumbo, definitely check out some of the recipes that are out there. Like I said, I will see if I can link this book if it's still available to like order or whatever, or if the recipe is out there somewhere. I will see if I can link that below as well. Next week, we will be back with a recipe for St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up, which I'm excited about. I love St. Patrick's Day. I will be baking an Irish soda bread for St. Patrick's Day to go along with our corned beef and cabbage that I will be making for our lunch and supper and all of that good stuff. So I am looking forward to sharing that with you. The following week, we will be back to baking yesteryear with the Continental Johnny Cake. So please like this video if you liked it. Please share it. Please make sure you're subscribed. And until next week, good times, good food. Bye.